Hello, everyone, and welcome to Backstage Fridays, the Phoenix Symphony's behind the scenes live stream series, counting down to our 2025-26 season. I'm Chris Powell, Vice President of Operations and Artistic Planning, and I'm so glad you're joining us today. We have a wonderful season ahead, launching October 3rd. Today, we're previewing one of the concerts that's generating tremendous excitement. On October 12th at Symphony Hall, the Oscar-nominated, Emmy-winning, legendary composer Danny Elfman joins us for Danny Elfman's music from the films of Tim Burton. A symphonic concert experience that pairs Danny Elfman's iconic film scores with the stunning visuals of Tim Burton's films. It's also an extra special time at the Phoenix Symphony because our gala will be held on Saturday, October the 11th, and will include the entire concert performance, plus cocktails, fine dining, dancing, and even a chance to mingle with Danny Elfman, conductor Sarah Hicks, and solo violinist Sandy Cameron. The gala proceeds help benefit the programs that bring our musicians into the community to schools, shelters for the unhoused, hospice care, and the Gila Indian River community, and many more. Danny, we are absolutely thrilled to welcome you to the Phoenix Symphony and to have you here with us today. Thank you so much for being with us in Backstage Fridays.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure.
Danny, like many in our audience, I'm a Gen Xer, and my teenage years happened in the awesome 80s. We were singing Weird Science and Dead Man's Party, which ironically was just on the radio, just down the street, like moments ago.
Oh my God.
It was awesome. And when you were frontman of Oingo Boingo, that's when a lot of us first got to know you. I'd love to hear about your journey from then, from 80s rock music icon into film scoring. What inspired you to compose for the movies?
Well, it's not even like I was attempting to get into film composing. It actually wasn't even on my list of possibilities. Um, I have a very strange kind of history because I started before Oingo Boingo, the rock band. I spent 7 years with the musical theatrical troupe, the Mystic Knights of the Oingo Boingo, which shares absolutely nothing with Oingo Boingo other than we stole the name. So it's doubly confusing. But it was a musical theatrical troupe, really did a lot of music from the 30s, 1930s, cabaret, surrealistic cabaret. But it was in that period of time that I taught myself to write music because I was doing transcriptions of early Duke Ellington and stuff like that, and didn't really think about it later when I started a rock band. I was like, oh, all that was a waste of time. That was around 79. And then suddenly in 85, I get a call out of the blue to meet on a film of this young unknown director named Tim Burton, but I knew it was Paul Rubens, and I had already seen Paul, that's Pee Wee Herman, by the way, perform at an improv group in LA, and I thought he was brilliant. So when I heard about a Pee Wee movie, it's like I was excited. I assumed they wanted a song, and when I met with Tim, he goes, "Actually, we're interested in a score," and I'm like, I literally said, "Why me?" And he said, "I think you could do a score." And so he showed me some footage, and I went home and my little 4-track tape or 8-track, whatever it was, tape player I had at that time, and did a little demo and sent it to him on a cassette and expected never to hear from them again. And I got a call a week later saying, "You're hired." And I'm like, oh my God, I have to score a film. But I am like a fan that got pulled into the art because from the age of 12, I was kind of a film music fan already. There's a composer named Bernard Herrmann, and on the fantasy science fiction monster films that I was deeply in love with as a child, he did these wonderful science fiction fantasy scores. And so I was equivalent. The best way I can describe it is like this: if you lived in LA and you're a Lakers fan, you'd see in all the for decades Jack Nicholson would always be ringside on the side of the game. He was like a fan, so there'd always be the various Shaq and Kobe, a shot of Jack Nicholson, and it was as if somebody got injured on the court and threw the ball to Jack and said, "Come on, get in the game." And that's kind of what I felt like suddenly getting pulled into this thing that I was a fan of, but technically knew nothing about. So it was just a big plunge. And the little piece of music that I wrote on the cassette that I gave to Tim became the main titles to Pee Wee's Big Adventure.
Outstanding. This brings up a question. Did Bernard Herrmann's scores influence your writing style at the time, or do they still do that?
Oh, definitely. I was a big fan at that first as a kid for Bernard Herrmann. Then as a teenager, I was kind of like a film buff. And I was really into still Bernard Herrmann, but also Jerry Goldsmith and Ennio Morricone. And I was really proud of myself. I could hear a score and go, I think that's Korngold, or I think that's Max Steiner. And I was that kind of nerdy kid and or young man, as it were. And so it definitely influenced me a lot because those scores became part of my DNA. And when I went out to write Pee Wee's Big Adventure, I immediately was drawn to the music of Nino Rota, who I was also a huge fan of. Nino Rota was the composer of all the Fellini films that as a teenager I became so in love with. And there was something about seeing Pee Wee on his bike riding in that bicycle race. It made me think like this is like kind of a old Italian comedy or something. It doesn't even feel like an American comedy, and so I was drawn to like I'll score this as if it were kind of an Italian film from the '60s or something.
You know what? Do you do your own orchestrations?
Well, that's a complicated question because orchestration has a very different meaning in film music than it does in classical music. And so I'm often asked this question, and it's very hard to answer because in classical music, orchestration really means changing something from one form to another. For example, Mussorgsky's Pictures at an Exhibition started as a piano solo and became this big orchestral piece. That was orchestration. In film music, we are expected as the composers to really lay out the orchestration, but we still use orchestrators to pull everything together and get it print ready, as we put it, and to I don't know how you would explain it, but by classical standards, yes, I do all my orchestration. By film standards, I still have been using the same orchestrator, Steve Bartek, who was, by the way, my guitarist in Oingo Boingo. As orchestrator, we've done over 100 films together. And literally, it came down to on Pee Wee, I said, I think I need an orchestrator to work with. And I said to Steve, I said, have you ever done that? He goes, I took a class at UCLA. And I said, that's good enough. So it was Tim's first feature, my first film score, and Steve's first time working as an orchestrator. It was the first for all of us.
Well, that brings up a question when I'm thinking back, right when you mentioned Pee Wee on the Bike could be an Italian film, kind of like right out of Fellini. When you're creating a character, let's say for the Tim Burton film through music, how do you translate someone else's distinctive artistic visual, like vision, into music without losing your own footprint? There's a multi-part question, and it's fine if I need to repeat, but how do you find inspiration for those compositional elements? Is something about the physical design, the costume, the makeup, or other concepts influence your composition for that piece?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Hard to answer because the reason why any composer develops a successful long-term relationship with a director is that they don't have to give themselves up and leave their own instincts because their instincts with the director are already similar. So when I met Tim, I knew we had a lot of similarities. We both grew up in Los Angeles. We were both what you call monster kids, meaning we grew up on monster horror science fiction films. And when I met him, I learned that his idol was Vincent Price, the great horror actor, and mine was Peter Lorre, the great horror actor, who frequently was in movies with Vincent Price. And so, needless to say, we had a lot in common.
Right. I noticed that there are some legendary pairings of composer and director, especially in modern day with film music being
Yeah.
so such a part of our popular culture. You think of John Williams and Steven Spielberg,
The
and
most famous, duo, definitely.
exactly. So that it seems like that director composer is symbiotic. That relationship is, you're both feeding off of each other's energies, maybe.
Well, my feeling is that for a director, trying to describe music is impossible. It's like trying to describe, for example, if you're a painter, an artist, and I want to commission a portrait, and I say, it looks like this, and kind of like this, and kind of like this. Well, the fact is, the artist is going to create something. They're going to create what they create. There's no way they can know what I'm thinking in my head. And it's the same with music. Um, you know, a director may say, well, I'm looking for something that's a little this and a little that. Well, you can interpret that 100 different ways.
Mm.
In whether it be John Williams and Steven Spielberg or myself and Tim or Carter Burwell and the Coen brothers or Alan Silvestri and oh Robert Zemeckis, these are all long-term relationships. I think the director reaches a point where they feel a trust that when they kind of show a film, they don't have to explain it. The composer will understand their aesthetic, and it won't be like a huge struggle to try to find that mysterious thing of like what makes it work. And so they'll go back to the same person. And right now I'm in the middle of a film with Sam Raimi, and I believe it's my eighth film with him. And it's like I go, oh, I know it's Sam. I know I know how to do this. It's like there's a certain kind of way I'm gonna push the music in a certain way that I just have a feeling he's gonna connect to. Now with Tim, he's a little more unpredictable. I never quite know what he's thinking because after 17 or 18 films together, uh, people say, oh, you must just know each other, have a shorthand. And I go, Tim's the most unpredictable director I've worked with. Unpredictable meaning I may come up with something that I think is a great idea, and he may have some completely different thing in mind, and he'll say, let's try it this way. So I learned with Tim to experiment a lot. And so like the first times we sit down in music, I might have three completely different ideas and say, here's what I think is going to work, but we could also do it this way, or we could also do it this way. And allow him to go, oh yeah, that direction, that's closer to what I'm thinking. Um, because he's got a pretty wild, obviously he's got an insane imagination, but pinning down what his thoughts are musically can be more difficult than other directors I've worked with. But always it's going to be a wonderful kind of area that's going to be fun to go into. Sometimes it takes a little work to find it, sometimes it doesn't. On the movie Big Fish, for example, it's one of my favorite scores of working with Tim. We really had to circle through a lot of ideas to finally find, yes, there it is. It was a journey. It was like a real journey of like discovery. Whereas Mars Attacks, I looked at the first rough cut and there was just really a two-dimensional mock-up of the flying saucers coming to Earth. And it was like, oh my God, I hear the whole thing in my head. And I had to say, stop the film, stop it. And I ran out to the lobby and I made a bunch of notes, and I came back and I said, I'm ready now. And what I heard was exactly what ended up in the film. Now, if I've done 110 films, that's probably happened to me less than 10 times. So it's not frequent, but it does happen. But those are two extremes with Tim of like one just being slam dunk first impression is it, and the other being let's really go on a discovery, a journey of musical discoveries, and find what this movie is.
Yeah, and that sounds very much like feed the music also informing I'm sorry, the story really informing the music as well.
Yeah, because you asked like what are the things, and it's all the things together. It's
Yeah,
both the acting, the script, of course, but you can still interpret a script many different ways. So it's the performance, it's the way the director shot the film. I remember before I did Beetlejuice, I had a little time off from the band, and I got a little. I thought I'll get a head start, and I read the script, and I wrote 4 or 5 pieces of music, and I was very excited about it. Then I came in and I saw the first cut of the film. None of it got used because the style of how he shot it was just different than I imagined. For example, if a director is shooting very theatrically, if there's movement of the camera in a way that takes you into a more dreamlike state, you're drawn to a different kind of music. If the editing is crisp, if the editing and the camera work is a little more matter of fact, you know, I don't know exactly what the word would be for it, but might bring you to a more realistic approach to the music and less theatrical because the feel of the movie is shot in a more realistic style as opposed to a more dreamlike style. So much has to do with what the cinematographer has done, what the editor has done, and certainly what the actors have brought to the performance. And
That's
it's
cool.
all under the umbrella of what a director does, but all those things come together to direct a composer in terms of like where to go. If that makes sense at all?
It does. We appreciate it. I know that there are a lot of probably young composers, in our audience, both live and on this program, that draw great inspiration from your work. But I'm just wondering who inspires you.
I mean, wow. I get a lot of inspiration from Russian composers that are at the very heart of my, listening. When I discovered Stravinsky, it was like an amazing thing for me. It was late in life when I became a musician. I was already in high school, and then discovering Prokofiev and Shostakovich and Bartok. Um, Prokofiev, when I first heard Prokofiev's music for the first time, I literally thought I was hearing music that was in my DNA. And I said, this isn't possible. I do have Russian ancestry, but why does this Russian-based melodic feel and harmonic sensibility feel so at home for me? And but yet it did. And so, like, these are huge influences for me. You may not hear it, but there are moments here and there where you can get a little bit of, oh, Prokofiev's back again, or maybe a bit of Shostakovich or Stravinsky or one of the others, and uh, I think a lot of inspiration comes from there, and of course, other film music. I still look at Jerry Goldsmith as a model for a career because John Williams has had certainly the most illustrious career of any American composer in my lifetime. But Jerry was unique in the sense that he kept reinventing himself. And
Mhm.
just at the point where you think, oh, he's old hat, he's had his era, he'd come up with a new score that would make you go, wow, and he'd be off and running again. And so Jerry is for me the model of a longevity career, of the be able to like keep finding new ways to do stuff, finding new energy, finding new design for the music. I think he was just absolutely brilliant at that. And he kept writing until literally the day he died, as did Bernard Herrmann, by the way, who had only just finished his last cue, the last score for Taxi Driver, when he went and died. He had to finish the score first. And to me, this is how a composer's life should be.
That's
You're
how
writing up until the Grim Reaper says, "Come with me."
Now, I find it very interesting. I'm a horn player, so I mean Russian music and also Germanic music. The drama, the great horn parts, etc., are awesome. But the what I find very interesting is with a lot of those Russian composers that you mentioned is that there's an underlying real pathos and a message.
Well, it's what I would call a soulfulness.
Yes.
There's a soulfulness in the Russian music that can only happen in certain conditions. When I was writing my first violin concerto for Sandy Cameron, who will be at our concert, by the way, um, I listened to so many violin concertos to try to educate myself, but it was Shostakovich's first violin concerto that absolutely riveted me, and I became obsessed with that. not only the symmetry of the movements, but the fact that the second movement is so crazy,
Hmm.
and the third movement is so heartbreaking and soulful. And it's like, oh my God, this is music that one could only write under the under the shadow of Stalin,
Yeah.
with such incredibly difficult times. I'm told that he actually kept a suitcase packed by the door, waiting for the police to come and cart him off. You know, um, I once told this to my son when a certain election happened and he was upset by it and crying. I said, it's not so bad. Look, we'll get through this because, it's America and it'll last as long as it lasts. It's not like my idol was Shostakovich. When he wrote his first violin concerto, he put it in a drawer for 7 or more years. He was afraid to play it, that it might actually get him imprisoned. I said, I'm finishing my first violin concerto, and my biggest fear is that no one will notice it. There's a big difference between what I'm living through and what Shostakovich was living through.
Well, inadvertently, Danny, you gave us a very good plug. We are doing the Shostakovich First Violin Concerto a couple of weeks after your concert here. So
Oh,
I hope
God.
people, you know what, if you come back, I know you're extremely busy. We'll have a seat for you, that's for sure.
Thank you. I love that. And by the way, every concerto I've done has been unintentionally modeled after the symmetry of four movements. Because I've done now, I'm actually starting my fourth concerto just now. And four movements, the first and the fourth reflect each other a little bit, bookends. The second movement goes off this direction to the left, and the third movement goes off in this direction to the right. And I can't, I'm so OCD that that symmetry keeps coming back to me. And I keep telling myself, darn it, this concerto, I'm going to write it in 3 movements or 5 movements, and it ends up being 4. So I just can't escape the, uh, the splendor and the curse of Shostakovich's first violin concerto.
Well, we're all better for it. So I'm glad that you've done that. That's awesome. I want to go a little bit into your performances here and some, what the audiences can expect. So our gala performance on October 11th is obviously extra special, and we are extremely grateful that you're going to be there and presenting the whole production to both celebrate your storied collaboration with Tim Burton, but also we appreciate you showing your support for our amazing musicians and their community programs that help bring incredible music to our most vulnerable communities in education. And that
Absolutely. It's all such good stuff, and I'm so happy and proud to do anything I can to support that.
thank you. What do you hope that the Phoenix Gala audience in particular is going to take away from that experience?
I mean, I never know what anybody might take away from an experience of my music, other than I'm such a pessimist. I'm always convinced that I'm going to get pelted with, vegetables when I go on stage, or that I'll be tarred and feathered and run out of town on a rail. So I always hope that doesn't happen. Beyond that, I'm just hoping people find pleasure in the variety of scores, music that Tim Burton has given me the ability to create for the 16 suites that are in the concert that I put together specifically for this concert. And I'm hoping if anybody's a fan of a film, as I do a suite, that they'll see there's something they know really well. There's something that I'll be playing that they don't, oh, I didn't, that's was a little more buried in the middle of the score. And on a dozen of them, I put in little bits of pieces that are original to the suites that someone who really knows the score well might go, wow, I don't remember hearing that moment. And it's very likely that you never did, because I've tried to make each one special to a certain degree. So I'm just hoping fans of Tim Burton's and or fans of my music or fans of film scoring in general will take away from the concert the wonderful canvases that Tim has given me over the years to allow myself to go in so many different wonderful directions. It's been such a gift for me to be able to move into so many different imaginative places with Tim.
Well, this production in particular, you've performed in a few cities now, and we're so fortunate to be on the list. In other performances of this, have there been any particular moments in the production that were unexpected, that like audience reactions, or anything can happen in a performance, and we always try to prepare. But has there been?
Absolutely. That's what makes it brilliant. That's what I love about these performances, which are real, because there's a lot of orchestral symphonic shows traveling around where a lot of the music is unfortunately pre-recorded or canned, and what you're seeing isn't necessarily what you're hearing isn't necessarily what's playing. These shows are completely live experiences. It's like got all the tension for me of theater. Anything can happen at any moment. Sometimes, God knows what. It's amazing how well orchestras generally pull through, but I'm biting my nails the whole time because it is live and it's real. And symphony orchestras, it's amazing how quickly they have to learn new pieces. And this is a very challenging piece. 16 different pieces of music that are very different from one another. It's not as simple as a symphony where once you get rolling in the style of music, it's fairly consistent from the beginning to end. These wildly diverse pieces, it's quite a challenge for every orchestra. And it's real and it's live and it's very exciting. It's what makes symphonic live concerts like this exciting to me.
Exactly. Thank you for saying that. I know that we have a series of films that we perform throughout the season, and for those people who have never heard anything in like a live orchestra perform with with a film, it's an extra special moment. But and I can't wait until our audience gets to experience this. So Danny, we're going to do a rapid fire round. I'm going to do 4 questions. Say the first thing that comes to your mind. What's your go-to pre-concert ritual?
If I'm performing, which I will be for these shows in Phoenix, because I'll be coming out and singing songs from Nightmare Before Christmas, I do a lot of pacing. I'm a very, considering the fact that I've been performing for half a century now, give or take, I'm still a very uneasy, nervous, I've never gotten over stage fright, ever. And so I'm pacing around quite a bit before I go out on stage. So if you're backstage, everybody's kind of looking through the wings, they're watching or they're doing what they're doing. And I'm just like pacing up at that clip, clop, clip, clop, clip, clop. Try not to make too much noise if it's a quiet section on the stage, because I don't want the audience to hear clip, clop, clip, clop, clip, clop. But that's my most common thing, is just pacing up and back until the moment I would walk out.
What's the last piece of music that you listened to just for fun?
The last piece of music, it was the new Nine Inch Nails piece coming out for their current Tron score that I just heard. They've only released one piece, and I was very excited about that.
Phenomenal. And finally,
a slightly different side of my life.
Yeah, I love that too, though. If you weren't a composer, Danny, what would you be doing instead?
Well, the only other thing I've done in my life was waiting tables. And I knew early on in my 20s, because I still waited and bussed tables for many years while I started, getting into music. And I knew that I didn't really have anything else that I could do. I never went to college. Didn't have any other profession. And so it was either succeed in music or give into the fact that I'm going to be a waiter for my entire life, or maybe not even, maybe a busboy, because I actually wasn't even a good waiter. And there was one restaurant where I bussed for a couple of years and they promoted me to waiter, and then they moved me back down to busboy because I kept screwing up orders. So even that backup profession had serious challenges for me.
Fraught with challenges. Well, we are happy that you are in the path that you are and have given us so much for so many years, and we thank you for being here. Danny Elfman, Maestro, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure hearing your stories and insights.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure talking to you. It's really been fun, actually. So I
Fantastic.
look forward to getting to Phoenix, and I hope everybody has as good of a time as I'm expecting to have there.
Well, we can't wait to welcome you to Phoenix on Sunday, October 12th for Danny Elfman's music from the films of Tim Burton, and on Saturday, October 11th, of course, for the Phoenix Symphony Gala, an unforgettable event pairing your iconic music with Tim Burton's stunning visuals.
Thank you.
And to our viewers, thank you for spending part of your Friday with us. Be sure to follow the Phoenix Symphony on social media and join us every other Friday at 11 a.m. for more Backstage Fridays conversations, exclusive previews, and behind the scenes moments as we gear up for the 25-26 season. Until next time, see you at the Symphony.
Okay, see you then.